Have you ever wondered why, no matter how carefully you plan your future, you keep sabotaging it with the same patterns? Why does every success feel temporary? Every relationship eventually collapses, and you always return to that same old pain. You may think it's bad luck, poor timing, or the wrong people around you. But what if the real reason has nothing to do with the outside world and everything to do with the wounded child living inside of you? On the surface, you look like an adult. You go to work, pay your bills, play your roles, maybe even raise a family of your own. But deep down, beneath the polished mask, there is still a child crying for attention. A child who once felt abandoned, rejected, unseen, or unworthy. And as long as you keep ignoring that voice, you're not building a future. You're only repeating a past that never healed. Think about it. How many times have you pushed yourself harder, hoping that achievement would silence that emptiness? How many times have you chased love, only to find yourself clinging, fearing abandonment, the way you once feared it as a child? How often have you smiled in public while secretly battling the same loneliness you felt years ago in a dark bedroom, waiting for someone who never came? The truth is brutal. You are not parenting your own future. You are parenting your wounded child. Every decision, every fear, every self-sabotage is shaped not by who you are today, but by the echoes of who you once were. And that inner child doesn't care about your plans, your goals, or your dreams. It only cares about being heard, about finally receiving the love and validation it was denied. Carl Jung warned us that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. This is exactly what's happening. That wounded child inside you is the unconscious force pulling the strings. And until you face it, nurture it, and heal it, your future will always collapse under the weight of your past. So let me ask you again, are you truly building a future, or are you just endlessly repairing the broken childhood you never escaped? Before we dive deeper into this, take a quick moment to support this channel. Hit the like button, subscribe, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you'll be the first to know when I release the next video packed with insights that can truly shift the way you see yourself and your life. Look around you. America is full of adults who look polished on the outside, but are carrying invisible wounds on the inside. They wear suits, drive expensive cars, post pictures of smiling families, and achieve professional milestones. Yet when the lights go out and silence arrives, many are left with the same hollow ache that haunted them since childhood. The truth is that our society is full of people who never got the love they needed when they were young, and they've been trying to patch that wound with everything but love itself. For some, it started with divorce. A little boy was waiting for his father to come home, but instead watched him walk away with another family. Or a little girl sitting in a room overhearing her parents fight, wondering if she was the reason for the chaos. Others grew up in homes where love was conditional, where affection only came when they performed, achieved, or behaved in ways that pleased their parents. Instead of learning they were worthy simply for existing, they learned to hustle for worth. They learned to perform instead of just being. And the wound stayed. This is what we now call the wounded inner child, that silent part of you that still believes you are not enough, that you are unworthy of love, that you must constantly prove your value. And even though years have passed, even though you've built a life that looks stable, this wounded child never left. It still cries, it still fears, it still shapes the way you act, even if you pretend it doesn't exist. Think about how this shows up in everyday life. Some people throw themselves into work, convinced that money and titles will silence the voice that whispers, "You're not good enough." They become workaholics, not because they love their jobs, but because productivity gives them a temporary illusion of worth. Others seek validation through relationships, desperately chasing partners to fill the emptiness. But each breakup reopens the wound. Each rejection feels catastrophic because it's never just about the present. It's about the child who still feels abandoned. Then there are those who bury the pain under consumption. Shopping sprees, alcohol, drugs, endless scrolling on social media. They numb the wound with pleasure and distraction, hoping that if they stay busy enough, the child will stop crying. But the child does not stop. It waits. It waits for silence, for vulnerability, for those moments when the mask slips and the truth comes rushing back. The tragedy is that most people don't realize they are still parenting their wounded child every day. They are not making decisions as free, conscious adults. They are making decisions as caretakers of a broken inner child, trying to comfort it with the wrong medicine. Every promotion, every purchase, every new relationship is secretly an attempt to tell that child, "See? You are loved now. You are safe now." But deep inside, the child shakes its head. It doesn't believe you. It doesn't care about your achievements or your possessions. It only wants what it never got: unconditional love and acceptance. And here lies the painful paradox. The more you try to fill the inner emptiness with external things, the emptier you become. Because no job, no partner, no recognition can rewrite the story you carry inside. You can't cover up a wound with a golden bandage and expect it to heal. Carl Jung warned us about this trap. He explained that when we ignore the unconscious, when we suppress the wounded child, it doesn't go away. Instead, it governs our lives in the shadows. We repeat the same relationships, the same failures, the same destructive cycles, thinking we're moving forward when in reality we're stuck in an endless loop. The unconscious child inside you is like a ghost. Until you see it, name it, and embrace it, it will haunt every corner of your existence. This is the modern existential problem. We live in a culture that celebrates outward success while ignoring inward emptiness. We are told to keep moving, keep producing, keep smiling for the cameras. We silence our wounds with therapy jargon, pills, or motivational quotes plastered on social media. But deep down, nothing changes. Because the child is still crying, and you cannot mute it forever. So the question is not whether you have a wounded inner child. The real question is, how much of your life today is being lived by that child instead of the adult you thought you became? Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And nowhere is this more true than with the wounded inner child. For Jung, this child is not just a metaphor. It is a living presence within your unconscious, hidden inside what he called the shadow, the part of your psyche that stores everything you refuse to face. The shame, the anger, the abandonment, the loneliness. These fragments of your childhood do not disappear with time. They are simply pushed deeper into the unconscious, waiting to resurface when you least expect them. The shadow is powerful because it doesn't ask for permission. It shows itself in your relationships, in your fears, in the arguments you can't seem to escape. When you feel triggered by criticism, when rejection feels unbearable, when you overreact to something small, this is often the wounded child inside your shadow screaming for attention. Jung believed that unless we consciously integrate this hidden part of ourselves, we will spend our lives being puppets to forces we don't understand. Freud, though often at odds with Jung, saw something similar. For Freud, childhood experiences were not just memories. They were determinants of adult behavior. He observed that the traumas we experience in our earliest years, whether it's neglect, comparison, or lack of affection, become the blueprint for how we act in adulthood. The man who constantly seeks approval may once have been the little boy who only felt loved when he brought home good grades. The woman who fears abandonment may have been the little girl left crying in an empty house. Freud called these unresolved patterns neuroses. Today, we might call them coping mechanisms. But the truth remains, your childhood still lives within you, and it dictates your present far more than you realize. Alan Watts, the British-American philosopher who spent his life translating Eastern wisdom for the modern West, put it in simpler but no less powerful terms. We try to build castles in the air while the foundation is cracked. What he meant is clear. We chase futures, dreams, and achievements without ever repairing the broken structures of our inner world. You can earn degrees, buy houses, build companies, but if the foundation of your psyche is cracked by unhealed childhood wounds, every success will eventually collapse under the weight of that instability. This is why so many people in modern America, despite outward achievements, still feel empty. They are constructing skyscrapers on broken ground. They are parenting careers, marriages, and children, while secretly still parenting their wounded inner child. They keep asking, "Why am I not happy? Why does fulfillment always escape me?" The answer is simple: because the child inside them is still hurting, and no amount of external success can heal what is broken internally. Jung, Freud, and Watts converge on the same lesson from different directions. If you want a real future, you must confront your past. Healing is not found in ignoring, suppressing, or decorating the wound with distractions. Healing comes from returning to the very source of your pain, from acknowledging the child you once were and giving it the love it never received. Jung called this process individuation, the integration of all parts of the self, including the shadow and the wounded inner child. Freud emphasized the importance of bringing repressed memories into awareness, facing the primal experiences that shaped us. And Watts reminded us that spiritual or personal growth without a stable foundation is nothing more than illusion. Together, they paint a clear picture. You cannot build a future by abandoning the child you once were. You must become both the builder and the healer. So ask yourself, are you still trying to construct a life on top of unresolved pain? Are you hoping that success, relationships, or recognition will silence the child within you? Or are you ready to pause, to turn inward, and to face the shadow directly? Because the moment you stop running, the moment you choose to look into the eyes of your wounded inner child and say, "I see you, I hear you, and I will not abandon you again," something shifts. The foundation begins to heal, and only then does the possibility of a true future, one not haunted by the past, finally emerge. Let's bring this closer to reality. It's one thing to talk about the wounded inner child as a psychological concept, but it becomes painfully real when you see how it plays out in everyday lives. Take, for example, the successful man in his 40s. To the outside world, he's the picture of achievement. He drives a luxury car, owns a beautiful home, and manages a thriving business. People look at him and say, he has it all. But behind closed doors, he is restless, irritable, and deeply unsatisfied. Why? Because every triumph he achieves is secretly an attempt to earn the approval of a father who never once said, "I'm proud of you." He grew up in a home where nothing was ever enough. Each A in school was met with, "Why not an A+?" Each accomplishment was brushed aside as ordinary. Now, decades later, he still carries that boy inside him, the boy desperate to hear the words that never came. And no matter how high he climbs, the silence of his father echoes louder than any applause he receives. Or think about the woman in her 30s who moves from one relationship to another, never able to feel secure. She's smart, attractive, and charismatic. Yet every time someone she loves pulls away, even slightly, she spirals into panic. She floods her partner with texts, begs for reassurance, and fears abandonment with an intensity that others find overwhelming. Why? Because when she was a child, her parents divorced, and she internalized the belief that love always disappears. The little girl who once stood by the window waiting for her father to return is still standing there today, inside her adult body, terrified that love will always leave. These are not isolated stories. They are reflections of a cultural epidemic. In America, coping mechanisms often disguise themselves as lifestyles. We call it ambition, but for many, it's work addiction, a desperate attempt to feel valuable by staying constantly productive. We call it self-care, but for some, it's compulsive shopping, buying items not because they are needed, but because each purchase momentarily soothes the child inside who once felt deprived. We call it connection, but for millions, S. Social media dependency, a cycle of likes and comments that temporarily mimic the love and attention that were missing in childhood. These patterns are not random. They are the strategies of wounded children trying to survive in adult bodies. When a child grows up feeling unseen, they learn to scream in silence. As adults, that scream becomes overwork, overspending, and overdoing. When a child grows up feeling unsafe, they cling to relationships like a lifeline. As adults, that clinging becomes jealousy, anxiety, or the inability to let go. When a child grows up feeling unworthy, they chase validation in every possible form degrees. Promotions, praise, beauty, money, never realizing that the hunger they are trying to feed is emotional, not material. The saddest part is that society often rewards these coping mechanisms. Workaholism is praised as dedication. Constant busyness is celebrated as productivity. Social media presence is mistaken for influence. But underneath the applause, people are quietly drowning. They are applauded for their masks while their inner child continues to cry in silence. Carl Jung warned that ignoring the unconscious doesn't make it disappear. It only strengthens its grip. That's why the man keeps climbing but never feels fulfilled. That's why the woman keeps loving but never feels secure. That's why so many of us keep running, buying, posting, and performing, because the wound refuses to be ignored. It demands healing, not distraction. And here's the uncomfortable truth. No external achievement, no partner, no possession will ever silence the wounded child. You can build empires, marry the perfect spouse, or earn endless admiration, and still feel empty. Because what that child longs for is not applause, it longs for presence. It longs for the moment you finally turn inward and say, I see you, I hear you, and I will no longer abandon you. Until that happens, you will keep repeating the same cycles, dressing them up with new faces and new settings, but always ending in the same place. The future will always collapse under the weight of the past you refuse to heal. So the question becomes, are you living as an adult building a future, or as a wounded child desperately trying to repair a broken past? Carl Jung left us with a haunting truth. What we resist persists. The very things we push away, deny, or suppress are the things that tighten their grip over us. And this is exactly what happens with the wounded inner child. The more you try to ignore it, silence it, or cover it up with achievements and distractions, the more power it gains over your life. It is like trying to bury a seed of pain, yet every time you press it deeper into the soil, it grows roots that spread invisibly, cracking the foundation of your future. Most people spend their lives running from this child. They hide it behind busyness, numb it with entertainment, silence it with medication or alcohol. They convince themselves that if they just keep moving, they can outrun the past. But here is the uncomfortable reality. You can't outrun what lives inside you. You carry the child wherever you go, in every decision, every relationship, every fear. And until you stop resisting and turn toward it, your life will always be a repetition, not a creation. Awakening begins the moment you choose courage over avoidance. It begins when you finally stop and listen to the voice inside that you've been trying to mute for decades. That voice that whispers, I was hurt, I was left behind, I was never told I was enough. To awaken is not to become cold, indifferent, or detached. It is to return to the child you once were and say, I am here now. I will not abandon you again. Healing is not about erasing the past. You cannot rewrite what happened. You cannot undo the abandonment, the rejection, the comparisons, the neglect. But you can choose what you do with it now. You can choose to reparent yourself to become the mother or father that the wounded child never had. What does this mean in practice? It means giving yourself the compassion you were once denied. It means setting boundaries, not to punish yourself, but to protect the child inside who was once defenseless. It means allowing yourself to feel anger, sadness, and grief without shame, because those emotions were silenced for too long. It means speaking to yourself with gentleness instead of the harsh criticism you once received. Reparenting yourself is not a luxury. It is survival. It is the only way to stop living as a fractured adult chasing the love you never received. It's about shifting from self-betrayal to self-protection, from neglecting yourself to nurturing yourself. When you do this, something extraordinary happens. The inner child stops screaming. The unconscious stops sabotaging. The shadow begins to integrate. And for the first time, you begin to live as a whole person instead of a broken one. Jung believed that individuation, the process of becoming whole, requires us to face the parts of ourselves we would rather avoid. The shadow, the wounds, the child. Because in facing them, we discover that they are not enemies but gateways. The wounded child is not here to ruin your life. It is here to show you the exact place where love must return. Imagine the power of this realization. Instead of running from your pain, you begin to see it as a guide. Instead of cursing your emptiness, you see it as a signal pointing you home. The panic, the jealousy, the endless striving, these are not signs that you are broken beyond repair. They are messages, alarms, and invitations. They are your inner child saying, "Please come back for me. Please, don't leave me here in the dark." And when you finally listen, when you finally return, the cycle begins to break. The repetition loses its power. You no longer need to seek constant approval because you've learned to approve of yourself. You no longer fear abandonment because you've promised never to abandon yourself again. You no longer chase success as proof of worth because you know your worth is intrinsic, not earned. This is what awakening really means. Not escaping who you were, but embracing who you still are. Becoming the parent your wounded child always needed, so that your adult self can finally be free. So I ask you now, will you keep resisting and let the past control your future? Or will you turn inward, face the child within, and begin the reparenting that will set you free? You cannot build a future on broken ground. You can decorate it, you can cover it, you can pretend it's solid, but sooner or later, the cracks will show. And this is the brutal but liberating truth. Your future will never feel whole until you have the courage to face the parts of your past that remain unhealed. The wounded inner child does not go away simply because you grow older. Age does not equal healing. Experience does not erase the scars. What heals is presence. What heals is the willingness to stop running and finally turn toward the one voice you have ignored the longest, your own. If you want to break free from the endless cycle of sabotaging your relationships, destroying your confidence, or chasing goals that never satisfy, you must begin with one decision. Stop abandoning yourself. Stop abandoning the child within you who has been waiting, sometimes for decades, to be acknowledged, seen, and held. This is not about blame. It is not about pointing fingers at your parents, your teachers, or society. Maybe they failed you. Maybe they did not know how to love you the way you needed. But now, as an adult, the responsibility is yours. You cannot change what happened, but you can change how you respond to it. You can become the safe space your inner child never had. How? By beginning a dialogue. Start small. Take a journal and write a letter to the child you once were. Ask them what they needed most. Ask them what hurt the most. Listen without judgment. This simple act can feel strange at first, but it creates a bridge between the unconscious and the conscious, between the shadow and the self. Seek therapy if you can. A good therapist doesn't just give advice. They hold a mirror to help you see the hidden patterns that control you. They guide you toward the places you've been avoiding. And with guidance, you can learn to sit with the pain instead of fleeing from it. You can learn to integrate instead of suppress. Practice self-reflection daily. Notice when you react with anger, jealousy, or fear that feels bigger than the situation. Those moments are often when the child cries out. Instead of shaming yourself, pause and ask, what part of me feels unsafe right now? What old story is being triggered? In that moment of awareness, you are no longer controlled by the past, you are reclaiming your future. Healing does not happen overnight. It is not linear. Some days you will feel like you are making progress. Other days you will feel like you are falling back into the same old patterns. That's okay. Every step you take toward awareness, every time you choose to listen instead of run, you are repairing the foundation. You are laying new ground that can finally support the future you want to build. Carl Jung believed that suffering is not an error but an invitation, a call to transformation. And when you listen to that call, when you stop silencing the child within and begin to embrace them, something shifts. The endless repetition of the past gives way to creation. The broken record finally stops. So let me leave you with this. Your future begins not when you chase it, but when you heal the child inside who still believes they don't deserve it. If you can hold that child, listen to them, and offer the love they always needed, then your tomorrow will no longer be a repetition of yesterday. It will be a beginning. Do not wait for another year, another relationship, another achievement to prove your worth. Begin now. Sit in silence. Pick up the pen. Seek the mirror. Hold the child. Because the moment you do, you will no longer be living as a prisoner of your past. You will be stepping into the freedom of your future. And when that happens, life will no longer feel like survival. It will feel like what it was always meant to be, yours. If this message resonated with you, take a moment to support this journey. Hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next awakening video that may shift the way you see yourself and your life. And I'd love to hear from you. Share in the comments the lesson or insight that spoke to you the most. Your words might be the mirror someone else needs to finally start healing.